Hi, I'm Xiaoyu, and I'm presenting our work on the visual skills that are necessary to answer visual questions. Before we get started, I just want to briefly introduce the terminology of visual question answering, VQA for short, for those of you who might not be familiar with the term. So, given an image and a question about the image, in this case, how many pink candles are in the picture, a human or an algorithm look at the image and provide an answer too. So, to be able to answer this question, there are several steps. You need to first find the objects, in this case candles, and then identify their colors. So you see blue, green, yellow, etc. And then you count and generate the answer that there are 2 pink candles. My point is that to be able to answer this question, you need to be competent in several different skills. It's a multi-stage reasoning process. So our work looked into the problem of VQA in the context of the underlying skills that are necessary to complete the task. To this end, we created a dataset with visual questions and the necessary skills to generate an answer. Our visual questions come from 2 main sources. The first one being real users. So these are visually impaired people who use their smartphone to take a picture and ask a question about the picture. And these questions get sent to some remote crowd workers to generate an answer. The second source comes from a very popular dataset used by the AI community for training or validating machine learning algorithms that are trained for automated VQA. So we look at the skills for these 2 very different sources of visual questions and analyzed to what extent do they overlap or not overlap. We asked 3 main research questions. The first one being what are the most common or uncommon visual skills that are required across the board. Second is that what skills make a question easy or difficult to answer for both human and machine. And finally, we trained the model to automatically predict skill label given the visual question. Here's an example of our data. In the first row, there are visual questions from the synthetic AI benchmark dataset, and below them are questions from real users. For each question, we employed crowd workers to label it with 1 or more skills from the 4 main categories: object recognition, color recognition, text recognition, and counting. Our taxonomy includes mostly high-level and human interpretable skills that are more granular than related work. To our knowledge, we are also the first in analyzing what visual skills are required to answer a visual question. So with this data, we looked into what skills are most commonly needed to answer visual questions. We found some misalignments between the common VQA training/validation dataset and the real user data. First of all, the 4 main skill categories are pretty good in covering most samples. The blue fonts show each skill's percentage in the real dataset, and the red one shows the percentage in the synthetic one. Object recognition, as you probably anticipated, is the most common skill involved, but we found mismatch in some other skills. Text recognition is a very common skill in real visual questions, but very much underrepresented in the synthetic dataset used for model training. On the other hand, counting is a very rare skill in the real samples, but a lot more common in the other dataset. We then looked into the problem of what skills make a visual question challenging. The assumption is that humans and machine learning algorithms have different strengths, so it really depends on the agent. We found that humans typically find text recognition as the most difficult skill. The main reason for this is that there are disagreements in how multiple crowd workers understand and summarize text, especially when the question is ambiguous. We also tested a bunch of off-the-shelf, state-of-the-art algorithms for each skill, and we found the best performance that's closest to human performance is in color recognition, and the worst is in counting. So the challenge when it comes to the human side performance is how do we find the best answer when there are multiple correct answers, especially for text summarization. And on the machine side, we also had a very interesting finding is that direct object recognition algorithms often don't do very well to answer these visual questions, even though that's the most commonly required skill. For the last part of our work, we trained the model that given an image question pair predicts the skills that are needed to answer the visual question. We chose a top-down attention model because it's known to have very good performance on VQA problems. For other skills, our model outperformed the baselines, which is random guessing based on the distribution of each skill, because there's no prior work on this. This shows that it's possible and promising to do so. This would be helpful for a Swiss Army knife VQA system, where we first identify the skills that are needed and then reroute it to the best human or algorithm to get an answer.